Hello everyone, and today we are about to begin a very special guide on the topic of group content. This guide will go through briefly many forms of content that groups can do together, what they are, where they are, and how to actually get involved with them. So we'll be talking about various types of content here, the first of which is going to be group dungeons. As you can see, I am with my guild right now and other friends of the guild as well, and we are about to go and embark on a group dungeon. These dungeons can be found on two different ways. They're either random in the open world, or you can purchase them in the marketplace as a map. Group dungeons are great typically for 5 to 7 people. However, we as a guild tend to bring more because we want people to participate with us. Side note, little plug, the Red Pandalorians are recruiting. We are a Caerleon faction guild, and you must flag Caerleon in order to join us. But anyway, if you plan on doing group dungeons in the Royal Continent, then it makes sense for you to do them while being faction flagged. As a little reminder, we've made a couple of previous videos around the topic of factions, but let me just share with you one more time. If you wanted to engage in faction warfare, you need to have at least Expert Adventurer unlocked and at least 700 item power to participate and receive the full benefits of the faction content. Why do you want to flag up for a faction while fan farming? When you do this, you earn faction points. Faction points are both used to increase your rank in your particular faction and as a currency that you can spend at the faction vendor that you enlisted in. For example, this second tab shows you all the different things that you can actually spend your faction points in. And to remind you once again, Shadow Hearts is what I purchase and I sell them immediately. You can decide to do the campaign chests if you need EXP, but if you want straight up money, I usually spend my money on the hearts as a good way to make money. So because we as a guild are going to do this group dungeon content faction flag, I need to flag up at the vendor and we'll be gaining a bunch of faction points. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the market region and we're going to purchase a map. I said there was 2 ways to access these dungeons. You could try to find them in the open world, which those are the random group dungeons, or you can purchase them in a marketplace and instantly get access to them. See what we got here. We're just gonna do a tier 7 group dungeon. Maybe I can even add it up to a 7.1. And so you just purchase it, and in a moment you will be able to have that. Now keep in mind, if you're doing this in the Royal Continent and you're purchasing a T8 group map, no go. Even though you could purchase it, you cannot actually open a T8 dungeon map in the Royal Continent. You would have to go to the Black Zone in order to use this. So if you are wanting to do Royal Continent, make sure the highest you go is T7. Do not go to T8. Now, when you are in a city, we are in Caerleon, one of the best places to open the maps is basically, I guess, in the bank area. However, if you were in another location, let's say you were doing this content and you had a map in, let's say, the city of Lyndhurst, the best place to open maps on any of the outer cities is on the 2nd level of the Conqueror's Hall, towards that area where you access the Black Zone portals. The reason why this 2nd level is the best is because it usually will spawn the location of whatever map you're using 1 tile away, so it makes it easy for you and your teammates to walk there swiftly. If you open it elsewhere, it's probably going to be 2 zones away, and it may be very unreasonable for you to walk a long distance. So make sure you open it in an area unless you don't mind walking a lot. We are about to open our map right now, and then once we press use, it tells us that our map is in the next zone known as Long Timber Glen. So we're going to go check that out and basically do the group dungeon map together. So you made it into your group dungeon. One of the first things you should do is change your skills to the PvE skills, and this is for everybody in the party, because as you're traveling to the group dungeon, especially when faction flagged, you want to be PvP ready. So as soon as you get into the dungeon and you know it's safe, you can start switching your skills over. As the tank, I'm choosing Taunt as well as Threat Generation. I am changing to the dodge roll on my boots for the damage immunity. My soldier helmet already gives me damage immunity, so I'm not changing that skill, and I am using Threatening Smash for threat generation. The best PvE skill to use usually on a mace is Air Compressor, but as you can see, I personally don't have it unlocked. If you don't have Air Compressor unlocked, Camlan is not a bad idea to use as a mace, because this basically does the same thing. It clumps things up really nicely, the E of the Camlan mace. And so because I don't have this unlocked, the next best thing I would say is Guard Rune to increase my damage resistances, and not only mine but that of my party. In terms of party members, what you need is one tank, one healer, and the rest AoE DPS. There is one other build that specifically would help in these dungeons, and that build is this one with the Boa Badan. This build is not necessarily a meta build. I'm just talking about this weapon. Somebody using a Boa Badan in a dungeon group would be exceptionally helpful because of this ability. It basically interrupts all spell casting while the effect of Raging Storm is on the enemy mobs. And so this really makes it very helpful to not get dealt super amounts of damage, because every time the big damage ability hits, chances are it's getting interrupted. I'll just say once again, the optimal group size is 5 to 7 people. Because we have more than 7 people, the mobs in the dungeon will actually scale upward in health. So it makes it inefficient in that fashion. It also decreases the amount of EXP that you earn, but because we are a guild and we're doing this together, we're not so concerned about efficiency. We're just here for camaraderie. But if you wanted to be super efficient, 5 to 7 people would be the optimal size of the group. So we're going through the dungeon now. As you will see, it is the tank's job to keep the threat on them. Your healer should be specifically looking out for the tank. If the tank dies, everyone dies. So the healer's #1 job is not to heal other teammates as the primary focus. Their job is, if the tank is low and another person is low and you have to choose who to save, always save the tank. They are the ones who are keeping the aggro off the healer. So if you as a healer want to survive, you need to make sure your tank survives. Now, some tanks are able to not use the taunt ability on their chest piece and still hold aggro adequately. For purposes of new players though, I highly recommend that you always use the taunt ability if you're new, so that you can ensure you keep your party safe and you keep yourself alive. It's just a very useful skill that absolutely helps get you to become a much better PvE player. So this one was a little bit tough, and my healer's not keeping me alive. Hold on a second. All right, I'll have to see something there. So what happened there was the Holy Beam was not used on me fast enough. If you are a Holy Healer, when you're going with a group, your W skill absolutely has to be the Holy Beam, because it is the biggest single target heal for tanks in the game. Additionally, you could use a Nature Staff as a healer if you so chose. The Revitalize ability on the W of Nature Staffs is a pretty quick, bursty heal, so it does a little bit of what the Holy Beam does on a Holy, but at a much lower clip. On the upside though, Revitalize does replenish the mana of your party members who are getting blessed by it. That's a big plus, especially if you don't have a Druid Cowl. Now, the members of our party here, we have 2 Druid Cowls in our party, and why are they important? If you want to be efficient, once again, the Druid Cowl is very important for this. It allows you to have unlimited mana, essentially, for all of your group members, so that you can continue to have a more organized endeavor, and of course, quicker uptime on your skills to kill things faster. Similarly to the solo dungeons, you must, clear the dungeons significantly if you want to open up any of the chests. But unsimilarly to the solo dungeons, the exits of these group dungeon maps do not close behind them. So we are vulnerable to an attack currently. In fact, I am going to ask one of our group members who is listening to please be a scout to ensure we don't get jumped, just stay a little bit behind. I would say Gladden Starfoot, or whoever is a single target DPS, would probably be the best option to do that. So if you are concerned about getting jumped in these group dungeons because the exits do not actually close, it'd be nice just to keep somebody who is still with the group but is just a little bit behind, to just make sure we do not get jumped. And you'll be prepared for any PvP that comes. Now, the scout can still stay in the general area to get credit for the PvE still, right? You don't want to be so far away that you're not getting credit. You just need to be a little bit further away to just see if something is amiss with enemies at the gate. Now, in regards to party members who are using the Druid Cowl, it is important that they anticipate the needs of the group. Many people are holding their Druid Cowl for whatever reason, but they should pretty much be using it on cooldown. And if you see a member of your party is, blatantly out of mana, you should probably place the Druid Cowl on top of them rather than placing it elsewhere where they have to move toward it. So in general, the tank needs mana the most, as well as the healers. Please prioritize those first for any kind of druid cows if you want to be a helpful group member, but obviously try to get it as many people as possible so that everyone has mana. 260k total, not bad. As we proceed, you pretty much go through the dungeon and continue to fight these mobs. Another thing to say as well, please do not pull unless you're the tank. Some people are overzealous, they shoot their abilities too early, or they just want to keep moving forward. That's the most annoying thing you can do and could possibly get the group killed. Please only pull if you are the tank, not if you're a DPS. Certain spells and abilities as well may inadvertently pull additional mobs that were not intended. So for instance, although Thetford Cape is great for the lightning damage it does on an AoE basis, it sometimes causes groups to pull unintended mobs, which then wipes the group. So if you are someone who's using a Thetford Cape or a weapon that has a huge range on it, be very cognizant not to pull additional mobs that could potentially kill your group. That's a very important thing that you need to do, is make sure you check yourself before you wreck yourself. One thing to mention about PvE in general is that there, especially in groups, there is a general order of what mobs you need to kill in order to survive the greatest possibility. In order to survive, basically. Typically speaking, you want to kill mages first, archers second, melee last. However, if the archer, for instance, is one of these downgraded archers, it's okay to kill them first, because they are quick to kill and it'll immediately take away some damage coming in. So usually go mages, archers, and then melee. But if it's not an upgraded mob and it's easy to kill, then you might want to just kill that immediately to stop that incoming damage. Now it's up to you how you want to handle loot in dungeons. Typically, because the game splits loot in these dungeons, these group dungeons, and it's RNG based on who gets what, right? Some groups may decide to say, hey, let's do the group dungeon, but all the loot will go into a loot split so that we can evenly distribute the loot that is being earned. I personally do not do that. However, if you wanted to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever your group leader decides is what goes. If he decides to do something like that, please be honest and contribute whatever you looted. Another note in regards to scouts, if you're doing activities that are extremely risky, such as some endgame group dungeon content known as Avalonian Dungeons, there are many people who will actually hire scouts to be the scout for their group, especially when they're wearing some significant gear. Let's say you're wearing significant gear, you may want to have a scout outside as well, just to ensure you don't lose everything. Sometimes the pulls might be challenging, so waiting until your tank has complete aggro before attacking the enemies is a good idea, but certain mobs are extra annoying because they spawn bats. So the mages that spawn the bats, unless those bats are handled by somebody, they're going to automatically attack the healer. So as a tank, be sure to know where the bats are and how they're going to be coming at you. Make sure you're gaining aggro so that those who are having to fight those bats are not getting killed. Now usually you would want to leash if you did not have a tank. Hopefully they come to that conclusion, but in situations like this, when your tank goes down, everyone should probably leash so that the aggro drops. Now what is a leash? Basically it's just moving out of the mob aggro range so that it doesn't end up killing your whole squad when you have no one who can taunt. So that was a good example right there. Even though we died and I died, it was a good learning example for those watching, because usually when tank goes down or healers goes down, the answer is leash, unless of course those mobs are very low on health and they can kill them. Now group dungeons and even solo dungeons, they can have a maximum of 5 floors. If you have a maximum of 5 floors, you are guaranteed a legendary chest at the end of them, and that is where the big bucks are made. So we'll see if we end up getting lucky here or not, but 5 floors is the maximum you can expect, and there is a guaranteed legendary chest at the end if it does have that sort of thing. The taunt ability is best used when you have the ability to hit the mob directly with another attack in order to gain the benefit of the taunt. So ensure that you're immediately ready to attack the mob after you use it, whether you're using an AoE skill or even an auto attack. That is how the aggro is taken. that will end up allowing you as the tank to keep aggro. Now, a very important thing to note is that certain mobs do random things where they lose aggro and the tank can't do anything about it. That is on the rest of your group members to dodge. If too many group members outside of the tank are taking damage, they likely are just not dodging and should begin to correct that course. They should try to dodge as much as they can. I know if you're brand new, you're not going to know the mechanics, but the mechanics in these dungeons are literally the same once you understand what the mobs do. They never change. So there should be no reason people should be taking unnecessary damage, unless of course they have higher ping. I learned that the hard way in the Asia server. I had 300 ping and I couldn't dodge anything. So, but if you have 300 ping, you're probably not going to want to play on the West server that we're on. You'll probably be better suited for Asia. Your choice, of course, but yeah, ping definitely causes you to miss dodging opportunities. In this boss fight, you try not to stay near the boss because it's going to just keep hitting you. So if you're ranged, there's no reason why you should be hugging the boss at all. And if you are melee and you're just getting destroyed, you may want to just stick your spells for something greater. Alright, so you defeated the boss here? Ooh, 2.65 million! Got 500k there, what the hell? Well, that was a nice one. Now, another important thing, before everybody leaves the dungeon, you guys need to switch your skills back to PvP skills. It's important to do this because you're about to leave. You don't want to be caught with your pants down without the right skills if a PvP situation does occur. So the moment you're done, you leave the dungeon, you A out. Typically, you want people to A out together, not separately, but that's fine as well. And that's how you do it. Another piece of group content that people can do related to factions is the capping of outposts in the open world on the Royal Continent. The best way to see how to go and cap a particular location is to open up your world map and switch it to your faction warfare window or filter. We as the Caerleon faction can see that we do own a few places. We are the black mob in the center, and we also see that we are connected to a zone called Long Timber Glen that has currently some flags that people are trying to cap this outpost. We want to go and cap outposts, but we may also get into some group PvP while we do it. So as we embark to cap this outpost, we will also be on our PvP skills, and then we'll see if there's anything to do. But generally speaking, capping outposts in the red areas will give you much more points than it would in the blue or yellows, but you can easily do blue or yellow zone outpost captures with a group like this and make a ton of faction points as well. Actually, dismount here with me in case they're just hanging out in the outpost. Okay, we're good. So as you can see, this outpost was taken by our faction, but not our group. So there are hostiles in the area. We are about to go into an area that is currently controlled by Thetford, but that borders our capital city of Caerleon. So the best way to cap these particular zones is look to see where the Thetford people might be in case they come back. It looks as though they are capturing this area. They're there, and they also have this. I would wager they're either going to go north, which there is fighting happening there, or they might even go southwest. So I think we're okay to begin capturing this area. The threat of Thetford, I believe, is elsewhere. So we are going to go to the farthest outpost. Typically what I like to do with this sort of thing is cap one outpost and then go somewhere else for a little while in case there is a larger group trying to come back. If we decide to also just do two there, that's fine as well. However, it's best to maybe cap one as the Caerleon faction, then move to a different zone. If you are any of the outside factions, no problem, just keep capping because you guys have large enough groups in which you can do that. One thing that I want to point out is that some groups are overzealous to go and do outposts without their tank. You never want to start an outpost without your tank, simply because you basically are alerting everybody that there's people here when you didn't need to do that right away. So trying to clear out these guards is actually not very helpful if you want to be stealthy. My group is doing that. I'm just pointing it out that typically if you want to be stealthy, don't do this. Wait until your tank is there, he starts the fight, and then everything will be okay. Because this might give people just enough time to actually come here and fight us. So as we're about to go and do this, everyone needs to change to their PvE skills because these faction outposts are not very easy to fight. And we'll be going in and doing the content now. Uh-oh, there is a blob. There is a blob, so let's get out of here. So again, awareness on the map is important. There was a blob that we saw right there. We're going to go see what it was, and then we can probably continue. It might have just been dungeon groups, but being aware of the blobs on your map is extremely important. Now, when do those red circles show up? When there is at least 11 or more people in a concentrated area. So just know that that is a thing. Another group activity that Albion Online has is known as Hellgates. Hellgates are essentially a PvE and PvP experience. They are made for 2v2 battles, 5v5 battles, and 10v10 battles. They have both lethal and non-lethal versions, and the Hellgates are actually a great way for new players to begin practicing for the lethal versions. Clearly the non-lethal Hellgates are going to be less loot than the lethal ones, but they still can give you some significant loot. We are not going to go over every single Hellgate type because pretty much they all operate the same. What we're going to do right now is show you a Hellgate 10v10 battle. We have 10 individuals who will be joining us, and we are doing the non-lethal version, which is what I would recommend new people do as well. Now, a couple things to note. What we have in our inventory here is maps that you could buy on the marketplace. That is the best way to access them if you want to find one right away. But you could also just run around the zones that you wish to do this content in, and you might find a random one as well. Seeing as we are doing the non-lethal versions, you need to look at the different requirements here. The item power required for level 2 non-lethal Hellgate is 800, same as the 5v5s, same as the 10v10s. Now, this item power required is very important for all of your group members to know, because it's not your average item power. It is your base average item power that 800 requirement is at. So some people who try to not go 4.1 or maybe even 4.2 will be well below the required amount to enter. So make sure that before you leave, everyone has the required 800 base average item power. Now, 10v10s are pretty complex, and so are all the Hellgates, but 10v10s are complex because you have 10 people that you have to worry about regarding their builds and the composition. The best teams actually have a strategy. They build their compositions to capitalize on a particular way of doing things. Some builds have more sustain, where they can sustain themselves longer than their opponents. Other builds are trying to literally one-shot their opponents. They have a combo, they set people up, and once the tank engages, they try to one-shot the opponents. There's many different builds that you can do. For purposes of this, we have not selected a specific strategy composition from any meta, but we have at least done the following, which makes the group composition of a 10v10 Hellgate quite good. You want 2 healers and 2 tanks if possible. The rest are going to be AoE DPS, whether they're melee brawlers or ranged combatants. You also want at least 2 druid cowls on a team, because druid cowls are able to fill your mana up when everyone is low, and for prolonged fights, druid cowls are saving lives. So at least 2 of those, and then just make sure that your team has a good composition of AoE DPS. If you are cloth heavy, then you'll probably need to consider having more of a counterattack strategy and a kiting strategy rather than a hard engage. If you have enough melee DPS along with your tanks, then you could be more aggressive and seek out the engagement. So depending on what you're doing, you want to switch up certain things. Now, 10v10 Hellgates, I believe, are one of Albion's best kept secrets. Specifically, I'm talking about the non-lethal Hellgates. We know that the lethal Hellgates are extremely lucrative, but the competition in them is extremely good. So to practice, we've been doing these 10v10 Hellgates, and what we discovered is that the loot in 10v10 Hellgates, the non-lethal version, is actually extremely high. The reason why I believe this is the case is because, number one, putting together a group of 10 is actually hard work. People who do this spend at least half hour sometimes trying to get their teammates ready, trying to find people for the group to hopefully stay a while. But unfortunately, a lot of people have to leave during these moments, so you have to keep finding people to join. So I believe the loot is good because it's hard to organize, and secondly, there's actually not that many people doing these non-lethal 10v10 Hellgates because of the reason why they're hard to actually organize, which means the black market loot has likely been backed up. There's loot that needs to be distributed, but people aren't doing it as quick as the loot is being accumulated, related. Hence, the last 3 days we've been making millions from non-lethal Hellgates. I hope that more of you, after watching this video, decide to run them so that we can have some more PvP. But right now, it's basically one fight every 3 non-lethal Hellgates. The other 2 times are free loot for us. So just understand that it's a nice thing to do, and I hope more people do it. What we're going to do now is we're going to be popping a map and taking ourselves to the location so that we can begin the Hellgate battle. So you're about to pop the Hellgate map for the non-lethal. If you're doing non-lethal Hellgates, it's best to go into whatever Conqueror's Hall your city has and go to the 2nd floor of it, because if you pop the map on the 2nd floor of the Conqueror's Hall, you will then have the Hellgate likely spawn only 1 tile away from the city. So just remember that if you want to be efficient, you just go to the 2nd floor of Conqueror's Hall and then you pop the map. As I mentioned, it's right there. So 1 zone away northwest, and we're going to head over there right now. So we've arrived at our 10v10 Hellgate. You could tell it's a 10v10 because it has these different markings on it. But it's important to note here that your party leader, which is me, is the first to channel into the Hellgate. This ensures that the party leader keeps his party leader status so that he can mark players and do what he has to do. So I'm the first one. The rest are going to follow in, and we'll be going into the Hellgate. Now that we're in the Hellgate here, you will see that we have to kill a certain amount of monsters. During this time, we can be invaded by another 10v10 team. Sometimes when you transport in, you're immediately invaded by a 10v10 team. And in that case, you would absolutely keep your PvP skills on so that you can get a good engagement. However, since we're doing PvE, make sure that you change your PvE skills so that you can be best capable of beating these monsters. Every single person should be changing to PvE, including the healer with the Holy Beam, as that will be a very important heal for these mobs in here. These are very difficult mobs. So we will go ahead and begin clearing them. After you clear a 10v10 Hellgate, meaning you get the 100 requisite, a chest pops on the map as well as a couple of other things. So the chest is self-explanatory. It's going to have loot inside of it. You have another portal here that allows you to leave the dungeon. And if we wish to go forward, which we will, we'll all be clicking on this Hellgate again to go to the next place. So let's see if we can open this up and see what the loot is. Total loot is 700k for a non-lethal blue chest. Now, we only got 70k here, but somebody got some good loot. So as you can see, 700k on a blue chest, that's actually not bad at all. So this is what I mean by Albion's best kept secret, 10v10 non-lethals. Get in here so we can kick your ass. I mean, I'm just joking. You know, well, maybe not. Maybe I will kick your ass. Anyway, come on in and enjoy the splendor. Oh, okay, we got to fight. Everybody switch to PvP. Switch to your PvP skills, please. Yeah, don't clump up here, guys. Don't clump up. Stay behind the tanks. Huge clump right here. Oh yeah, we gotta go deep here, guys. We gotta go deep here now. They have nothing. They have nothing. Go deep. Careful. Don't clump too much because they could. Oh, wait, careful now. Careful now. Back up. Back up. I got a Judy here. I'm gonna drop it right now. I couldn't. Okay, yes, I could. All right. I'm done. So as you can see, that was a 10v10 Hellgate where we actually got invaded, which is awesome because we got a chance to do some PvP. Clearly you saw that we lost the battle, but we were doing okay. But that's part of it. Basically, when this happens, the next thing you got to do is everyone's going to journey back, and we're going to go back and pop another map so that we can keep going. But the loser and the non-lethal gets kicked out of the dungeon, and the victors go on to clear the remaining mobs. Then eventually they can get that chest as well. So we're going to go back in. That was a good fight. That was interesting. Basically, they were doing one-shots. So this is the first time that many of us have seen that in our group, the one-shot comp. So there was a few times that I felt we were clumping. And so against a one-shot, you definitely don't want to clump. And we'll just go in there again and see what's next. It's the same team as last time. Same. Oh, careful. Get back if you need heals. I'm in their back line right now, just trying to do a couple things. I'm gonna hit them into the corner, hit. Smack them, smack that. That's big. Yeah, back up and heal, back up and heal. Yeah, you need heals, Eds. Go back. Alright, here, hit that guy's silver. So as you can see, I did something stupid there. As a tank, I overextended without any defensives. This is usually what happens. A good team will identify, even if you're a tank, they'll identify that you're overextended and try to take you out accordingly. So positioning matters. Our healer also died during the first engage, so I'm assuming that was also a positioning error for them. So these are just, you know, some of the lessons that can be learned in regards to better positioning. All right, dismount here. Don't attack anything yet. Okay, let's move. So this is the Thetford boss that we're currently facing. It does a lot of fire stuff. Pretty easy to dodge though. There does come a part of this mob where suddenly you're just getting tons and tons of projectiles aimed at your dome. So you have to like keep moving, otherwise it's gonna hit you at your feet. Oh, well done. Once you defeat the faction boss, you begin to cap the outpost, and you will see that we'll get some nice Caerleon faction points as a result of this. It also depends on how many stars. This is only a 1 star, so we're not going to get too much. But 522 is nothing to sneeze at either. Nice. Okay. Good job, good job. With the second outpost capture pending, we will begin to recapture this particular zone in the name of Caerleon. It does take a little bit of time, but as long as you have the majority of the tiles in the zone to the faction that you're a part of, it'll start to capture that zone. So as you can see, black is going to purple, and we'll eventually gain a lot of faction points. Nice job, guys. So we actually have to wait in this zone until this caps if we want to get credit for it. So let's just kind of chill on the sidelines until this actually caps. This is the only faction, Caerleon faction, that actually has this mechanic. On the other ones, you could just kill the outpost and then move on to the next zone, and you'll still get credit for the previous zone. The next piece of content that we are going to do is known as the Duo Mists of Albion. On previous videos, we've shown you different versions of the mists, but they were all mainly solo. Today, we're going to go into a duo mist, explain a little bit about it, and discuss any differences, if there are any, to be had. If you're wondering where we are currently, we are in the city of Breslin, which is the city of the mists, and there is a portal here that allows you to choose solo lethal, dual lethal, or non-lethal to enter the actual Mists of Avalon. We're not going to enter quite yet because I have a few other things I'd like to talk about. The reason why we're in Breslin is because of the easy access of this particular piece of content. Outside of that, what you also should probably understand is there's other ways to get into the Duo Mists of Albion. That other way is just going to the open world and going into a greater Mist of Albion. That right there will be exactly what you need, and hopefully you'll get into a mist. Now remember, there's only lethal duo mist. There is no non-lethal. So if you're going into a mist, that is what you're going to have to do. So we've entered the duo mist. Similar to the solo mist, they look quite similar. They do have everything a solo mist would, and the only difference being that the outposts take a lot longer to capture, since 2 people have to actually contribute towards the outpost capture. So I would say the biggest difference is in the faction, the outposts, and all you got to do is just clear them to get credit for it. It looks like there might be something down here. There is a chest down here. So in addition to the outpost that you're going to find, you're also going to find certain chests that spawn. There's going to be crystal spiders. There's going to be mythical creatures. There is turbulent mists. Hopefully we'll see a few examples of those as we travel throughout the duo mists. But what we're going to do is we see this chest available. We're going to go down there and see if we can capture it. Now, when you go towards these open world objectives, there are likely going to be other people there, like this. Careful, there's one guy here. Oh, this guy's overpowered. Let's just move on. Yeah, this is too fishy here. All right, so another example of a point of interest here is this turbulent mist. It also has a similar timer, and this is where you have to escort the Wisp to a predefined location on the map. Only the carrier of the Wisp knows the location, but the catch is the carrier cannot mount up while he's transporting. So it is very risky that you walk it all the way to whatever location it is. Once the Wisp is picked up, it disappears from the map until it is dropped out of the hands of the carrier. So it is a little bit harder for people to track if they're not at the Turbulent Mist when it opens, and it is by far the highest impact activity that they have here. Also, another reason why you want to do this content early is because if you do have premium, you get a second island. Every time you earn might, you earn favor, and you can see that if you open up your Conquerors challenge here. You can see the current favor at the bottom of the screen, and then only premium can actually get the chest. Yeah, favor is the currency that you spend at the energy manipulator to make money from it. So yeah, you have to go to an energy manipulator vendor and spend your favor there. It's like the last tab on there.